Well, I guess the Chaos Dwarfs aren't coming until January 2069 at 4:20 a.m., so for now, we'll have to content ourselves with a gigantic combined title with 20 plus playable races, while we wait for tall, goofy Babylonian hats. How will we survive? In the meantime, new Regiments of Renown are out, and Valkia the Bloody has a new friend to play with. The Bloody Fist of Khorne is about to fall on Bretonnia and King Louen, who's had his hands full in recent weeks dealing with these dastardly chaos incursions, must once again answer the call of the Lady. And in sharp contrast to the Great Unclean One we saw paired with Festus, both Valkia and this new Bloodthirster have some real teeth against the Knights of the Lionhearted. Valkia is just straight up a good lord, she's scary, but Khorne's Bloody Fist is like a flying scarbrand with 25 bonus first large. This guy has incredible stats. If you want to take on monsters or cavalry, he is your dude. His passive ability Goreshell gives him a 10% ward save pretty much permanently in melee, because there won't be many situations where there isn't a big creature or mounted unit in his general vicinity. And as you might imagine, this fearsome duo, working together to take down knights or hippogriffs, might present a large problem to even extremely powerful creatures like Louen on Bakeys, if they can avoid being tar-pitted by peasants and other sorts of fodder. Valkia, for her part, very difficult to snipe out because of that small hitbox and profile, not to mention immunity to damage from Losifac's the Demon Shield, and deadly wave clear from the Spear of Slopnir. And there's no question this army is tailored for countering Bretonnia, from halberds to cornitors, fleshhounds, and throwing axes. Playing against Xiphos in this one, kicked my ass in the last game with Slanesh and Avalorn, so I needed a bit less memeing overall and a bit more brutality, which Great Weapon Minotaurs bring in spades. Halberd frontline naturally needs no explanation. If you're going up against a Cav faction, having a sturdy front line that can kill Cav is a pretty good idea. But it does mean Khorne's army is very small, and that could be a problem in and of itself. On the other side, flying the colors of Leon, comes the King with Lion's Shield and Sword of Khorne. Peasant swarm in the front ranks, questing knights and grail knights everywhere, supported by the lore of life. Now, this one feels a lot like what Khorne likes to do against the Ogre Kingdoms, and it makes sense when you think about it. Both the Ogres and Bretonnia are reliant on large units to deal their damage in melee. Questing knights and grail knights can still put the hurt on armor, but it can be hard to get good trades against the cheaper halberds, so at least in this meta, they tend to rely on dwellers below. Also have some real Pegasus Knights here, which could be an interesting challenge for that Khorne's Bloody Fist. Now, Dwellers is unquestionably OP in its current form, and is once again indicative of the problems with Magic in the series. Kind of point, click, delete, thoughtless, mindless, no drawbacks whatsoever. I am once again asking for a legit Dispel system, which exists in both the lore and in the tabletop game upon which the series is based. But yeah, Bretonnia has elected not to bring Dwellers below this battle, presumably for that very reason. It's very cool to watch that spell for the first 10 times, as it was for Pit of Shades, and a lot of other these stationary vortexes, but it's not as interesting when you see it for the 1000th time, and it decides every single battle you're fighting. And that is one thing that I think is sometimes not too clear to you guys. We play a lot of games, and we don't want to run core meta shit every single battle we play, right? Sometimes we feel the need to try hard, sometimes we feel the need to bring the best spells, the best armies, especially if it's a competitive situation. But there are a lot of times where we've already done that 20 times before, we just want to try a new spell loadout, right? Like, you don't want to run the exact same thing every single battle. That's exactly how this series would get stale. So I do get a lot of comments saying like, wow, I was so stupid, why didn't you run XYZ? The reason's usually because I didn't feel like it. Thematics and fun units for flavor are just as important as the other battles where we show exactly the best troops to bring in certain situations. And I think having that healthy mix is exactly how I want to handle it. Now things are popping off in battle. Valkia the Bloody has activated Losifac's the Demon Shield to give her immunity to damage for the next 13 seconds while King Louen attempts to beat her down. Khorne's Bloody Fist is coming in to reinforce against the questing knights who have charged in, gotten a full surround off. This is where having that low profile as Valkia is extremely helpful. It is very hard to pick her out from the middle of a crowd. She has 20 bonus for large herself and obviously an incredible stat line. So backed up by the Bloodthirster, the new Regiment of Renown for Khorne, they are going to start wailing on King Louen. And though he has activated his Sword of Khorne for a massive AoE debuff, he's losing that fight, and badly, because he's got a big hitbox and Bakeys is a beefy panda. And usually I'd say that being beefy is a really good thing, but there are downsides to it, and it means that when you've got a large hitbox then Valkia and the Bloodthirster can wade through the crowd quite a bit easier and attack into the unprotected flank and rear. While elsewhere, Bretonnia pushing that mobility advantage, but coming feet first, Sir Lara Strong style, directly into the Khorne, and that is going to be a difficult fight for the Cav to take, especially with halberds in the mix. They will pretty much immediately notice it and retreat, but Fleshhounds of Khorne are right there, nipping at their heels, and it's a difficult situation for any cavalry unit. Fleshhounds are an amazing anti-cav tool as well. Obviously, they've been a core part of the Khornate meta since launch day, since their inception. And though you can't expect them to beat armored cavalry 1v1, if they're attacking in the flank or helping out in another engagement, they are an incredible tool. And here they are, once again, coming back to reinforce Khorne's Bloody Fist and Valkia the Bloody. Khorne's very one-note. There's not a whole lot of nuance or depth there, is there? Spear Sleipnir has something to say about that, though, carving funnels into the earth and doing a whole crap ton of damage to the Grail Knights out on that side. A lot of the cavalry for Bretonnia has already been beaten up, but a nice attack from the rear with the Grail Knights and the Royal Pegasus Knights coming in to reinforce their lord. King Louen is already down past half HP after a relatively damaging duel with this demonic monstrosity from the void. Khorne backed up by halberds and a whole lot of chaff. Bring the dual axes occasionally so you can get through those men-at-arms quite efficiently, but if they get charged by cavalry, they will not perform very well, and we did see that at the outset of this battle. Another highlight of the Royal Pegasus Knights and the Grail Knights coming in for that hammer and anvil. Patented strategy of the Knights of the Lady. Horde of Khorne around Valkia, around the Bloody Fist, fighting alongside their Fleshhounds, trying to beat back this brutal attack from behind. King Louen is back up into the air, and that means plenty of regen will be going his way, and Khorne doesn't really have great options for getting him out of the sky. They can't really catch him with Valkia or with the Bloodthirster. Xiphos is correct to retreat with the Grail Knights. They were in there maybe a little bit too long, and now he would be well served retreating all of his mobility advantage, getting them together, maybe for a group heal under the damsel, Lore of Life, an Earthblood, regrowth, that kind of thing, to get their health back into a relatively decent fighting shape would be extremely beneficial here, because King Louen's looking a little worse for the wear as well. Bloodthirster and Valkia are pretty healthy. Peasant Bowmen in the rear are firing in, and their focus fire against the demon could be very good. 10% ward save from Goreshell really doesn't go that far when a lot of focus fire is headed your direction, as we've seen. Single entities do not enjoy archers getting a lot of point-blank shots into them. Looks like Valkia has activated her Demon Shield for the second time. Again, 13 seconds of immune to damage. Could be potentially game-changing in some of these duels. And the cavalry is just getting butchered. Royal Pegasus Knights, not really known for their staying power, even with Stand Your Ground activated from King Louen Leoncoeur. They charged in to get us round off on the Bloodthirster, and the thing is starting to drop relatively low. But Khorne's looking pretty strong here, and King Louen has to get stuck in. If he doesn't support his elite knights, they won't be around for too much longer. Throwing axes have engaged in melee as well. Remember, they've got 44 weapon strength and bonus versus infantry, so Khorne's throwing axes are legit dual purpose. They can be quite good running down chaff and medium armor units, especially if they've already had a morale shock sent their way. Bloodthirster and Valkia diving into the rear to deal with the Peasant Bowmen. Sword of Khorne from King Louen activated. Minus 24 melee defense and minus 30 armor. Pretty big debuff. But the Greater Demon of Karnath has his sights set on one thing and one thing only. Get rid of the skirmishers, get rid of the bowmen, and it will be extremely difficult to kill this creature of Khorne. And Valkia, once again, styling on him like the Khornate Valkyrie she is. She's just a beast, and it should be a terror momentarily for the Peasant Bowmen in the rear as Khorne continues to surge. Minotaurs are looking pretty healthy right now. You've still got some infantry and halberds remaining. Royal Pegasus Knights are rallying to their lord, but a Spear of Sleipnir carving through the side of those men-at-arms. They will rout, and now a drag-it-out fight to the death. Khorne's Bloody Fist may be in danger of crumbling out here, which would be a swing, although I'm not sure it would be enough to get Bretonnia back into this fight. Killing it would be big, but Relentless Rage, Unbreakable on the demon, will prevent it from becoming unstable and crumbling out, which means it will stay until the end of this battle, and army losses will kick in. That'll be your battle. So the last time we saw King Louen Leoncoeur and the Knights of Bretonnia, They ran over my Nurgle in a domination match, spreading the field and playing the objectives away from the Great Unclean One. Obviously more difficult to do that in land battle because you have to kill the enemy army. And in this situation, there's no question that Dwellers Below would have potentially changed things. Now, a couple things to note here. If he brought Dwellers, the first thing you should do, by the way, in any multiplayer battle or in campaign too, but it's more important in multiplayer, is to look at your enemy's magic selection and figure out if they have the capacity to blow up your blobs. Now, a Khorne army against Bretonnia, with halberds, with cornitors, very elite, very small, likes to set up that death ball and kind of keep it compact, keep it tight. That can lead to blobbing. There's blobbing that battle. If you see that he has Dwellers Below, though, you gotta spread the field more, which does open things up for the cavalry on Bretonnia's side. And if they don't have it, it means that systematically deleting the halberds from the game at the outset becomes more difficult. So again, there's no question Bretonnia with Dwellers is a different faction. They become a lot more powerful when they have some kind of wave clear to deal with armored bonus versus large infantry. But with that said, it is possible to play around Dwellers if you're against it as well. It isn't an automatic victory. I'm definitely not claiming that at all. If you see that your opponent has it, you just avoid the blobbing and try to only let them hit maybe one target with each cast. He's going to be able to kill a lot of your infantry if he has it. There's no getting around that. But I think with Khorne's Bloody Fist and Valkia as your core, you still got a real good chance against Bretonnia.